Good morning. My name is Terrell Harris, one half of the leadership team of the Open Box, where our vision is to make wholeness more accessible. Today's message comes from 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 2 through 5, and it reads as follows. It happened late one afternoon when David rose from his couch and was walking about on the roof of the king's house that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. David sent someone to inquire about the woman. It was reported, "This is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, wife of Uriah the Hittite." So David sent messengers to get her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she was purifying herself after her period. Then she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and she became pregnant, and told David, "I am pregnant." Today's message is how to affair-proof your relationship. So as we see, we're in the middle of the story where David actually commits adultery with the wife of Uriah. So he's on a rooftop. He's walking about. He glances out the window and sees a woman bathing. He uses his authority or power to call her over, to have her summoned over, and they have sex, and she gets pregnant. So this actually happens while Uriah is off at war. And to give you a condensed version of the story, to cover it up, what David does is have Uriah killed by sending him off to battle a second time. And so what we see here in this story is that David is actually breaking 3 commandments as it relates to the 10 commandments. He not only does he commit adultery, not only does he covet his neighbor's wife, he also actually has someone killed in the process. So although we see the story, and then later on we see the consequences of the story in terms of how God doesn't like what David did in this particular situation, and we see the results later on, there's not much to give us, or there's not much that the Bible gives us to let us know what do we do to prevent from situations like this. Now, I'm not one to always teach and always give lessons strictly on just giving out consequences, like you do this, if you do this, X, Y, or Z will happen, because I don't think that actually works all the time, because there could have been some preventative measures in this instance, or if we look at it in modern day times, we could take some preventions to this, because let's be real, let's face it, we'll always be physical or have a physical attraction for somebody else outside of our spouse or outside of our boyfriend or girlfriend. And I think oftentimes we're not honest with ourselves, and I don't think it's not necessarily a sin to be physically attracted to somebody else, because let's be clear, we'll have that physical attraction. It's what we do with that. But the Bible in this particular segment doesn't show us what to do with it. It doesn't tell what David to do with his attraction. The way the story is painted, David sees something, he likes it, he summons for it, they have sex, and then they end up having a kid, and he ends up killing the husband, which is pretty crazy. So if you read the Bible, you'll see there's a lot of interest in it and pretty graphic stories just like this one. So what exactly do we do to affair-proof our marriages or our relationships? So I figure there's 2 things that we could actually do. The first thing we do is we have to be very, very honest with ourselves, and actually honest with the person that we're in a relationship with, in communicating our feelings of attraction to somebody else. Now, this might sound a little bit sketchy or a little bit tough, or if we have pride or ego, we may not want to do this, or we may not want to offend the person that we're with. But I think if we actually are open and honest about it, in a way that's not necessarily comparing, our current spouse or person we're in a relationship to another person, I think if we're honest that we're maybe attracted to somebody else, or having a physical attraction to somebody else, what that does is it notifies all parties involved in the relationship, and you can begin to work on some preventative measures so that this actually doesn't go further than it's supposed to. Also, I think we all may have to look to outside resources to kind of figure out how to affair-proof our marriages and our relationships. And I have a good resource which is entitled His Needs, Her Needs. It's a book that Brooke and I actually use and actually recommend to all of our family and friends. who are looking into, making their relationships better and actually having a way to draw or strengthen connections to one another and prevent any outside influences from infiltrating our relationship. So this book is authored by Willard F. Harley, and basically what the book says is it lists out the typical needs for a man and the typical needs for a woman, and some of them may overlap. So let me just read some of them off to you. So as it relates to a man, the book lists a man's needs as sexual fulfillment, recreational companionship, an attractive spouse, domestic support, and admiration. What it lists out for the needs for a woman is affection, conversation, honesty and openness, financial commitment, and also family commitment. So what the book actually does is it has you go through a series of exercises, one chapters for the male, one chapters for the female, and it actually speaks to men and women in the way that they will be able to understand the other side's actual needs, and it just puts it in a basic language that it makes it easy for both parties to understand. So if you're having troubles communicating your needs, this particular book or this particular resources will help you with that. But it also lets you know that if any of these needs are not being met, what will happen is it has the way this book is explaining it is that if these needs are not met, that there's a potential for somebody outside to meet these needs. And what the author does is refer to this as love points or the love bank. So say for instance, if my need as a man is recreational companionship, which is one of my needs, by the way, if Brooke is not actually meeting those recreational needs and somebody outside meets those needs, what happens is somebody else is putting love money or love points into my love bank, and then when my spouse or when Brooke doesn't meet those needs, what actually happens is it minuses points. So there's a technical aspect to this book, not necessarily a hardcore figure or a hardcore what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily a hardcore formula to this, but often what happens, or what is explained that happens, is when our love bank or when people are making withdrawals from our love bank or our spouse is not meeting our needs, what particularly happens is that our love bank becomes empty and we look to fill that love bank up in other places. So let's take example for David's interest or from the perspective of David. Maybe David wasn't being sexually fulfilled, or maybe he just felt that he had to have a more attractive spouse. We don't know. We can only assume. But what happens is when he sees Uriah's wife, when he sees Bathsheba, what automatically is happening here is that one of his desires is being filled, whether it's sexual fulfillment or whether it's trying to get an attractive spouse. So for us, what we have to do is be sure that we guard against that and make deposits into our love bank. And also we have to be sure that we know each other's needs and make sure that we're meeting them on a consistent basis. So I would recommend first being very specific or very truthful about your attraction, your physical attractions to somebody else. And then I will also recommend this book right here, His Needs, Her Needs. And based on my personal experience, when we go through these exercises, when me and Brooke go through these exercises, and we go over our needs, I think that strengthens our bond and our relationship. This way, outside forces can't infiltrate that, and we actually build up a wall that nobody's able to break down or get past. So peace and blessings. I hope this message benefited you, and let's end in a word of prayer. God, we thank you for the opportunity to come and hear your word today. We ask that you help those who may be struggling in their relationships. We ask that you remove any outside forces or any outside influences. We also ask that you strengthen our communication, and we ask that you give us the courage to do the work. And we also ask that you provide resources outside of the Bible that will strengthen our relationships and make us smart and make us better companions for one another. This we ask in your son's name. Amen. Thank you. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a good day. Peace.